Big welcome everyone to tonight's training session. I'm thrilled to be joined by Jenny Weidner, the director of Be Intentional, who is a leadership coach and trainer. We've used Jenny for a variety of sessions. We've always had amazing feedback. And I think one of the things that's so good about Jenny is actually she's not from the direct sales industry. And I think sometimes it's helpful to get a perspective of someone that's not really ingrained in the industry. So she doesn't have any preconceptions of what people might be thinking, feeling. And she's really good at flipping the perspective away from you and kind of focusing on actually the people you're talking to and what they might be thinking, feeling, because it's really easy to get lost in you and kind of taking things quite personally or feeling like you're doing something wrong when you're not at all. You're doing a brilliant job. Like sometimes you just need to look at things through a different lens, and that's why we've got Jenny tonight. So I'm going to hand over to Jenny now. Jenny will be answering some questions, I think, at the end if we've got time. So if you want to ask a question, just pop it in the chat and Jenny will either answer it as we're going along, or I will then pose the questions to Jenny at the end as well. And yes, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I'll hand over to Jenny now.
Thanks so much, Lucy. And absolutely, it'd be great to have any questions in the chat. I'll just bring up my slides. And yes, as always, I'm also here at the end. So if we don't get to some things and anyone has got a burning question, I'm really happy to stay and just answer those. Lucy, can you see everything okay before I make a start?
Yeah, everything's perfect.
Great. Oh, it's great to see everyone again tonight. Thanks for joining me, especially at this time of night. I apologise for the blurred background, but I'm moving house next week. So it is pretty chocker with a whole load of stuff. And yes, I hope you can just kind of settle in now. I know you might be juggling bedtimes or grabbing a cup of tea. And, you know, I'm absolutely fine if videos are off. It's great to see anyone with their videos on. Even if your video's off, it'd be great for you to join us in the chat. So we'll get started. The session tonight, as Lucy is explaining, it's a slightly different perspective. It's all about follow-ups. So the last session I did for all partners was around reframing recruitment. And tonight's session, just so that you know what to expect, and I'll look at this in a bit more detail in a moment, it's not about adding more. So tonight isn't a session where there'll be more checklists or new scripts or processes. It's not about pushing harder or following up faster. Tonight, it's all about being able to take a step back and asking, why do we follow up at all? So what if, so we have a few what if questions. What if following up isn't about chasing? What if it's actually about connection? What if it isn't about being better at building your team, but being braver about caring and creating connections? So together, and it will be hopefully a session just like last time. It was wonderful last time. Loads of engagement in the chat, and it becomes then a shared session rather than me just talking at you for the evening. We're going to try together to flip the script. So instead of follow-ups being a chore or a checklist or just a way to simply build your team, we're going to look at it as the opportunity to change somebody's life, or at the very least, open a door that they weren't sure they were able to walk through. So that's the aim. Tonight, we're going to have time to reflect, reframe, and find a way to follow up that feels right for you and the people that you're talking to. And as the title says, the session it's not about the process, it's about the people. So the focus today is all about people. And that will start with us, the people that have joined us in the room tonight and those that are obviously watching later on with the recording. I'm really lucky. I've been with Usborne doing leadership academies, and now this is second all partner sort of session. So if you've seen one of my sessions before, we always start in the same way. Although my company name has changed to Be Intentional, Sakona, which was my original company name, is really still my methodology. And the name Sakona is a Zulu greeting, which means we're here to be seen. So I'd like you just to kind of relax your shoulders and remember there's no judgment in the space tonight. Come as authentically you, no masks, no excuses, and I will do the same. We are here to be seen. So where are we going? There's going to be two main parts of the session. We're going to start just by thinking about what makes following up tough. And I say that as a sweeping statement, as if everyone finds it tough. What I'm hoping is there's going to be some people on the call tonight. Actually, this is one of their strengths. They love follow-ups and they can help us do some of the reframing. But I own a business and I'll be honest, I find following up tough. It's not the natural thing that I would always choose to be doing. So this session actually tonight is looking at what can make it tough. And if it's not tough for you, what can make it tough for your team? Then the second part is understanding our mindset towards following up. So it's really important for us to understand what our mindset is about it, what our thoughts are, and how that impacts. And then the second part is stepping into the shoes of the potential new recruit. So we're going to look at it from our mindset. And then the second part is we're actually going to look at follow-ups from the person we're talking to, their perspective, which hopefully will help us to do a little bit of reframing or just shifting, as Lucy said at the beginning, shifting some perspective and helping us to feel great about following up. So I thought the most sensible place to start is what is a follow-up? My background is education, as some of you know. And I'll be honest, and before I started my business, I hadn't heard of following up. There was no need for following up in education. So for those of you who maybe haven't been with Usborne for that long, I thought it might just be good that we all have a shared understanding that I'm not talking about one thing and you're thinking of something else. So when I think about following up, I think it's the active engagement. So you're actively engaging with someone after an initial interaction. So you've maybe had a touch point with someone in terms of online, social media, or you've had a quick conversation with someone or made a connection at maybe an event or pop-up bookshop. So you've had the initial interaction, and then the follow-up is what comes next. So I'd like to get things going in the chat nice and quickly tonight, rather than you sitting there listening to me chat for a long period of time. What I'd like just to see, and the next couple of slides, we're just going to get a feel of where you all are, because that will help me to shape the session as we go. So I've put just rate it. So we've got a rating scale, 1 to 10, and never go with a 0, because I think that's just sad times 0. So let's go with 1 is I really don't feel confident about following up, or my follow-ups are not very effective. 10, like absolutely nailing it. Feel really confident, and I know my follow-ups are really effective because of the results I get. So can you just put me a number in the chat and let's see where we are. Brilliant, thank you. So 3s, 4s, oh, fantastic, and 9. 12. I mean, if that is a 12, that's off the scale. That's incredible. 2, 8. Okay, great. A real mix. And as we work through tonight, what I'd like is if we can use the chat, you'll get perspectives other than my own, because all of you here, whether you're brand new to Usborne, whether you've been at Usborne for a very long time, whatever position you're in, your input will be really valuable for others, because it might change a thought process or bring up something that someone hasn't thought of. So it's actually really helpful that we've got a range of numbers coming up on the scale. So, oh, it was meant to be a 2, but put 1. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm probably with you. Shame it wasn't a 12. I was thinking that could have been an absolute winner, but no, great. Thank you for Sarah. That's great. Okay, so why is following up important? So we've talked about what following up is. Why is it important? And, you know, when I started my business, this is a classic line. It's not really attributed to anyone particular, but I hear it a lot. The fortune is in the follow-up. And I first heard that phrase, I was thinking, well, you know, I get it, but what is this in terms of why is following up so key? So the first thing is most people need multiple touch points to make a decision. So when we think about decisions we've made in our lives, so for example, one for me would be starting one of my big qualifications. when I decided to sign up, I didn't do that the first time I'd ever heard of the people that ran the qualifications. I'd actually listened to their podcast. I looked at their website. I then had joined their email list. And actually, then when I saw they were launching a course, my decision was very quick and easy. It wasn't the first time I'd ever come across them. So multiple touch points are vital generally, unless someone wants what you're offering right this second, it's exactly what they need and they know it, then they might say yes straight away. But for a lot of people, especially when they're shifting into something quite big for them, starting a business is, I would say low cost in terms of what you get at Usborne is incredible for your money. Really, what you're doing is committing yourself to starting something new. And we have to be in the right, headspace for that. So the other thing is following up shows that we care and understand. If we have an initial interaction with someone, we've got to think that actually it's not always on them to come back to us with questions or an answer. If we're following up, it shows that we are still there, we care, we understand maybe where they are, which we'll discuss later in the session. But most importantly, we value them. We really want them to be part of what we're doing. And finally, an opportunity to speak directly to the part of the brain that decides. So when we're making decisions, part of my coach training, we looked at how, like, almost the strategies for how we make decisions. And I'm definitely not a brain expert, but the research that I was given was around our limbic system, which is driven by emotion, and our neocortex, which is logic. And obviously, when we're starting to make decisions, it's a bit like that gut feeling that will come from our limbic system. So it doesn't understand language or logic. What it responds to is tone, body language, images, and stories, things that feel right to us. And most of us will make those decisions based on what feels right in our gut or in our heart. And when the two compete, whether that, emotion and logic, generally emotion will win out. So when we think about following up and follow-ups that we're sending to people, it's not just about presenting facts or benefits of what we're offering. What we want to do is speak directly to the part of the brain that decides. And this part of the brain doesn't care really about bullet points. It cares about feelings, trust, and connection. So I'd like you just to take a moment to think about maybe a decision that you've made in the past. Can you think of a time when you made a decision that felt right? So it felt right in your gut or in your heart. Maybe it wasn't the most logical decision to make, or you made it very quickly because it just felt like the right thing to do. I talked about moving house. I've only gone to see my new house twice. And what we're investing in that is something huge. But that's because I've walked in and it feels the right thing to do. So tonight, we're going to consider, what if following up isn't about closing the deal? And when I talk about the deal, I mean, inviting someone into our team, helping to build our team, opening up a relationship. But when I say the deal, this applies really, it's broad in your business. Yes, tonight we're really focusing on the context of recruitment. So in terms of following up with potential new recruits, following up, as we know, is key for sales. If someone's shown an interest in something and we want to follow up with them. And then also with organisations and schools. So if you want to have a pop-up bookshop somewhere and they've not come back to you, or you're trying to organise a Ready Steady Read or a book fair somewhere, following up is about opening a relationship rather, potentially, than trying to close a deal as quickly as possible. So if you came or watched my last session for all partners, we use this model, and it's a really, really simple model. If you've not come across it before, it's the cognitive behavioural coaching model, so CBC model, but it helps sometimes to break down why we do what we do in terms of our behaviour. So following up, why is it tough? So we had quite a few numbers, twos, threes, fours, fives. And thanks, Anne. Love that reframe. Thanks, Anne. Um, it can be tough following up. And often the reason it's tough is because our behavior is governed by our thoughts and our feelings. So we'll have a thought and a feeling, and those thoughts and feelings together will impact our behavior in terms of what we do and what we don't do. So the best way to break down something where there's potentially an obstacle or that we're finding something tough, that can feel quite huge. If you scored a 2 and you're thinking, okay, where do I even start? I feel like a 2 out of 10. It feels like a bit of a mountain to climb. If we start to break this down, we can work out what unhelpful thoughts we're having or what we believe, then we can start to shift forwards into a new way of thinking. So we're going to start with our feelings this time. Normally I start with thoughts, but I thought actually we're talking about making decisions based on our hearts and our guts. So let's go with our emotions. So what I'd like you to do is in the chat, put one word to describe how you feel about following up with potential new recruits. And I know it's 20 past 8 almost. So I thought just to give you a helping hand if you're thinking, oh gosh, too late to think of a word, I put loads on the screen. Yes, great. Let's start seeing them. So nervous, daunting, apprehensive. Oh, excited, Nicola, amazing. Useless, excited, connections. That's a great new word. Thanks for adding something different. Scared. We've got quite a lot of excited, motivated, overwhelmed, burden. I'll just give another minute. Just kind of search around. And there might be several. There might be some, some of the green, some of the red. Yeah, great, Melanie. So excited and doubtful. Uncertain. Yeah, there we go again. Awkward and optimistic. Proactive too. Hesitant and excited. It's interesting, isn't it? Almost seeing like this kind of balance of hesitant and excited, fear of rejection, unsure, nervous, purposeful. That's a good one, Laura. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Just hold that word and as you work through the session, it'd be interesting to see if the same word applies at the end or when you start to take action after the session. Our feelings are governed generally by our thoughts. So these buckets we used in the last session, and the feedback at the end of the session, when we were talking about what was useful, the buckets came up as quite a simple but kind of clear explanation of how our belief system works. So if you've not seen these before, let me do a really quick explanation. We have thoughts, and we can't, once we process those thoughts, if we have the same thoughts over and over again, they will become a truth, which is where our beliefs come from. Now, some of those will be positive and really helpful beliefs, and others can be limiting. And tonight we'll think about some of the limiting beliefs we might have. But it'd be great to hear some of the positive, empowering ones too. And our beliefs, they're not actually truths. They're just things. They're just thoughts that we've had, and we can't always tell the difference between a thought and a truth. So we start to create these deep-rooted beliefs that then will govern our behavior because of the thoughts and feelings we have around them. And our beliefs will drop into generally one of 3 buckets. So they will drop into either a belief about possibility, which is obvious, like what is possible. The second bucket, ability. So the skills we have, the capability, our experience. And then the third bucket is about worth, which is our own worth and value. So what I'd like you to do is just think about some of the beliefs you have about follow-ups. So let me share a couple of ideas. So the ones that might drop into the possibility bucket is I've followed up before, nothing's ever come of it. I don't think, following up brings extra possibilities for building my team. Your ability bucket might be, I've never had experience of following up before in my previous job. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to write a follow up. I don't know how often to send a follow up. So about the skills and capability you have around following up. And then the third bucket, the kind of thoughts that might drop in there would be, why would someone want to join my team? There's so many Usborne leaders or partners out there. Like, oh, why would they want to join me? Or I'm actually really new to Usborne. Oh, what have I got to offer? Like, how can I build a team when I'm still learning? And these will govern how we deal with follow up. So just take a moment, and I'd just like you to consider the thoughts you have around following up. So, not the feelings, but the thoughts that you have. And if you can, if you can process it fast enough, and I'm definitely, as I would say, a slow processor, so I'd have to rewatch this and then I'd probably be involved. So no pressure. But if you can process it, if you can think of the thoughts that you have around follow-ups and then drop in the chat, are they generally falling into the possibility bucket? So your thoughts are about what's possible, the ability bucket, so your skills and capabilities, or the worth bucket, your value and worth. If you can think, like, where are your thoughts generally falling, and just put a 1, 2, or a 3 in the chat for me. 2, thanks, Lindsay. 2, 2, 2 and 3. 1. 1 used to be 3. Oh, thanks, Anne. It'd be great to hear if you were happy to share in the chat what's changed. I love that, things have shifted. Lots of 1s and 2s. Another 3. Fantastic. I'm really grateful for the sharing. And the point of sharing is sometimes by committing that into a chat, it just helps you to really consider what's happening with your thoughts and mindset. And I have strong values. Amazing. Mindset work's really important to fill that worth bucket. And we're going to think about that in a minute. So thanks so much. That's really helpful. If you think, actually, say, for example, you've chosen ability bucket 2, and that is the bucket that's impacting you the most. And that might be the bucket that needs to be filled. If it's your worth bucket, like Anne's just suggested, like, how do we fill these buckets? And when I say fill, I don't mean how do we get more limiting beliefs in them. I'm talking about, like, how do we fill these buckets so that we find evidence other than these limiting beliefs? So if, for example, in bucket number 3, we thought, why would someone come and join my team? We start to realize, okay, if that's the bucket that I need to fill, how do I do that? Who can support me? Where can I find help to shift my thinking about my worth? And Anne's suggestion around mindset work is perfect. How do we build that? If it's around possibility, okay, where can I find evidence that actually following up brings incredible possibilities? How can I seek that out? If it's ability, who can help me to build my skills? What skills do I really need? And we'll look at that in a second in a little bit more detail. But the point of thinking about which bucket is what we're doing is starting to hone our thinking. It's not this big cloud of, following up is just, a 2 or a 3. We start to realize, which buckets are the ones that we need to maybe work on and develop. And actually also thinking, do you know what? My possibility bucket is pretty secure. Like, I'm not worried. That's not where my thoughts are falling. So finding some positives in there as well as what you want to change. So our behavior. So I said right at the beginning, that model that goes down. So we have our thoughts and our emotions, which we've shared. So the thoughts that we're having and which buckets they fall into, the feelings that we have, which you brilliantly shared in the chat. Combine those together. This is what impacts the behavior. This is what impacts what we do. and sometimes more importantly, what we're not doing. So if we are feeling hesitant, unsure, overwhelmed, and the thoughts we're having are falling into ability or worth, what that might mean is with our behavior, what we're doing is maybe procrastinating around the type of message to send. Not maybe what we're not doing is maybe sending messages very frequently, or we're not following up if that's in person or online regularly. We might overthink what we're writing. If, however, those words at the beginning, excited, feeling of being excited, and if our thoughts are actually falling into the possibility bucket, but if it's that anything is possible, all I've got to do is just keep trying, then what we might be doing is sending lots of follow-ups without overthinking. We might be regularly in touch with people, even if we're not getting all the responses that we would want. So just take a moment and just think, how are your thoughts and your feelings together impacting what you're doing and what you're not doing? And I won't ask for everything in the chat, but feel free. I'd love to see anything. So if you're someone that likes to kind of write things down, and any sharing is, as I said at the beginning, is really, really valuable for others. So please feel free at any time to put it in the chat. I'll just give you a minute. What are you doing and what are you not doing? And oh, thanks, Anne. Oh gosh, that's a great question. Am I right in thinking that your body cannot tell the difference between being nervous and excited? So whenever I feel nervous, I repeatedly tell myself in my head that I'm excited. Yeah, sorry, brain. Yes. Um, yeah, and actually the responses that our body has to some emotions, and emotions for me, just signals, pieces of information. They're just flagging things up for us. But yes, the signals can be really similar. And actually, seeing that as even nervous excitement is really helpful as a reframe. Yeah, great, Anne. Thank you. Oh, following up frequently. Feel like I'm scaring people because I'm too excited. Getting in touch with most, but also feeling disorganized. Emailing message, but not calling. Oh, some really good reflections. Oh, thanks for those. That's great. And I think even just thinking these things through, hopefully will help you to work out where you are. Yeah, and ghosting. We'll talk about ghosting as we go through the session. So thanks, Vicky. Fear is just excitement when you don't know the outcome, which is something that's always stuck for me. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. Sue has so many little golden nuggets, doesn't she? So yeah, that's a wonderful thing to hold on to. So, when we're thinking about what's getting in our way, sometimes those thoughts are quite huge in our head. And I'm a visual learner, as some of you know. And what I like is to kind of create something where we can get them down on paper. And this is a worksheet that I used at Leadership Academy. So hopefully familiar to some of you or the teams that you've worked with. It's a really easy one to use. So I would invite you, and we'll just do this for 2 minutes. What I don't want to do is spend the whole session. We could spend the whole session on this. I want to give you as much value as possible. So you can continue this after the session. Oh, thanks, Laura. It's a great one. It's so simple. I'd like you just on a piece of paper, if you've got paper and pen on the sofa with you, draw a big circle. So the big thing is following up, or you might put effective following up or following up confidently, whatever works for you. Put that in the big circle. And then the smaller circles, just scribble them all over. They basically are hiding the big things. So it's the little things that get in the way of the big things. And these little bubbles are all little things that are clouding and getting in the way of us following up. And what I'd like you to do, thanks, Vicky, is to start jotting down even one or two things to get yourself going, and you can pick it up again later. One or two things in these small bubbles. What are the things that are getting in your way? Now, some of those might be some unhelpful thoughts. It might also be practical things, but start jotting them down. What's getting in your way from effectively and confidently following up consistently? And the point of this worksheet is once you've identified the small bubbles, you just look at popping one little bubble at a time. So what we're not looking for is that tomorrow, it'll be amazing, we're not expecting that tomorrow you're suddenly a 10. I was a 2, now I'm a 10, absolutely acing, following up. What we're looking at is what bubbles can we remove to help you move further up the scale. So it might be like, what's the difference between a 2 and a 2.5, or a 2 and a 3, or a bit of a jump, 2 to a 4. What you want to do is find things that you can pop these small bubbles one at a time and shift forwards. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes just to have a go at jotting some things down in these small bubbles while I'm not talking at you at the same time. And if you, again, I did say I wasn't going to talk, but if you do want to pop anything in the chat, any of your small bubbles, I'd love to see them. Forgetting. Yeah, procrastination. I mean, just knowing that you forget is a really helpful thing to know. Feel I'm annoying schools. Yeah. And it's the same when you're doing recruiting, isn't it? It's that feeling of being annoying, confidence, getting distracted and scrolling my phone is a big one. I mean, it's a great bubble. I'd say that's, compared to something like confidence, that's a much easier bubble to pop. Having that as one of your bubbles, and other people might be reading that thinking, oh gosh, that's me as well. That is one where you think, okay, how do I make sure I don't get distracted? How do I shift that so that bubble can be popped? So that's helping me to have following up being less obscured. Yeah, fatigue. I understand that. Their time management. Okay, Becca. And actually, Becca, that's a really good point. Sometimes I feel they're not answering for a reason. The second part of our session that we're going to come on to in a second, that's something that we'll be chatting through. And I think that fatigue, it's the resilience, isn't it? How do you keep going when you are ghosted regularly? And again, hopefully coming out the other side of the session, hopefully what we'll see is it's not necessarily, as Lucy said, it's not necessarily about us. Yeah, not knowing what to say each time. Well, that's fine, Andy. We're gonna look at that together. Thank you. That's brilliant to see the kind of little bubbles that you've got. And hopefully as you're looking in the chat, it might prompt you for what other little bubbles you might have. Yeah, life with family. I mean, the juggle is a tough one. But again, it's working out, okay, how do I do this in a way and at a time that works for me? That's a great reframe. I love that. Thank you, Laura. Okay. Let's I know we're kind of shifting through quite quickly, so apologies. I'm one of those people that I'm still writing in the chat and someone's moved on to the next slide. So apologies if that is you, that you're still halfway through your small bubbles. Please keep going if you want to. But it's really important that we now move into the second part of the session, which is stepping into the shoes of our new recruits. So the first part was all about where are we? Where are we in terms of do we think? What do we feel? What's holding us back? The really important thing tonight is that we said flip the script and let's think about the people we're trying to follow up with. And when Lucy and I chatted about this session, this is the question that stuck with me the most. What might be going on for them? And I think in the chat, you kind of just alluded to that. This might not be about you. And I'm telling you now, Lucy said this at the start of the session. The most likely thing is it's not about you. It's not that you don't have the skills. It's not that you don't have the capability or the worth or that the possibility's not there. It's what's going on for them. And stepping into their shoes is vital. One, to shift our mindset out of this is about me. I'm not good at following up, or I'm constantly ghosted. Like, I know the fatigue that comes with that. We've talked about that. And I've talked about that at Leadership Academy with a lot of people. It's tiring. And if you don't get much reward, it's really difficult to keep going. But sometimes what we do is take what's happening as something about us, and we kind of own that. We take that on. What I invite you to do now is ghosting and things that don't quite go to plan is leave some space. So here's a ghosting, here's you, and we're going to create some space. And the way we create some space between us and the lack of response or the response that we're not looking for is by putting ourselves in their shoes and thinking what might be going on for them. This is maybe not about me. And when we think about what's going on for them in their personal lives, I mean, look at what we've just been saying in the chat, and this is the same for me. I mean, I'm moving house, we're talking about family commitments. Who knows? And we can only make assumptions sometimes. But the initial contact you have with people is crucial. The initial contact can then set up your follow ups really well if you can find out any information about that person. And obviously, the most ideal first contact is face to face because you can read that person without them saying anything. Their body language, what's going on in terms of have they got children with them? Are they older? Are they talking about health issues? Are they talking about a job they hate that they need to shift out to because it's really not flexible? Start to gather this information and hold it somewhere. And I would suggest not in your head because that's tough. Make some little notes, jot it down. Like, okay, I met Anne the other day. Anne had two children with her. She looked, and then we've got Anne. Sorry, your name is at the bottom of the chat, so this is definitely not about you, Anne. But let's have a fictitious Anne. Anne is frazzled. Anne is frazzled. All of these things. You're starting to build a picture about that person. Okay, Claire, how do you do that when they won't talk to you though? I understand that. I would obviously say if someone contacts you through something like social media, you're going to have much less to go on with them, compared to, as I said, face-to-face contact is the way, you're going to get much more information. But we're going to talk in a minute about how maybe to kind of get some good bits from them. But even if you've had hardly any contact, if you're able to view their profile or see where they're posting before, and anything you can gather about them to tell you something about them. Now, you might not know exactly what's going on for them, but you could maybe hazard a guess. So this is, this is just something I've created. This is definitely not, fact. I was thinking about myself. So I'm a parent. I've got two boys. And I thought, like, okay, how does my year span out? What does my year look like in terms of pressure, or stress, or worry? And actually, I thought at different times of the year, I have different pressures. As a parent, there are key times where I feel differently to others. So, Christmas, summer holidays for me, times where I'm really keen to spend time with my family. I also need to balance work commitments, financial pressures of summer holidays and Christmas, guilt around everything. Don't work enough, don't do enough with the kids, seeing social media, social comparison with all these wonderful things that are happening like down the road, and my kids have, watched a film with me. The pressures are varying throughout the year. Thanks, Lindsay. I think it's thinking about, okay, what is their reality? So, okay, at the moment we're in June. What if we know anything? If we know anything. Now, obviously, if we don't, we don't. But if we can get any piece of information about them, even their age, or like, on their profile, what do they do as a job? Are they a parent? In their photo, they got kids with them in their profile photo, or when you've seen them, like what little bit of information do we have about them? What might be their annual journey? And where are we in the year? So if we're in June, how do we need to speak to them in June? If we're in January, I might speak to someone and think about what they're doing in a different way. So it's really getting into their shoes, if you can, getting into their shoes and thinking what's happening for them. It's creating that distance between about this is not about you. This is about the person you are speaking to. And what I would say is the most important thing, if they will talk to you, is to listen and be curious. The more you find out about them, the better. Because there are going to be things that they're thinking. So we did our buckets. I'd now like you to think about their buckets. And most importantly, there's going to be things that they're thinking, but they might not say. Now, if you're lucky enough to have made connection with someone and you followed up and they've actually asked for information, great. Now, they might not reply. And these are sometimes the reasons why. Their possibility bucket might be filling with limiting beliefs. And when we're talking about following up with people, remember, if they have shown some kind of interest, you're not just spamming every single person alive. If they have shown some kind of interest, they've reached out to you, or you've had a conversation, or you've made a connection, what will happen is, as I said, most likely, it's not about the financial commitment to start the business. It's about what they're embarking on. I said to Lucy, when I think about, I talked about, oh gosh, if would have been brave enough to go to Leadership Academy myself the first time I arrived, how would I have felt if I was a leader arriving for the first time? And when was writing this session, I was thinking, how would I feel if I'd met one of you at a school book fair, which I regularly do because my children's school uses Usborne. How would I feel if I'd kind of said hi, well, this looks interesting or something? I said to Lucy, actually, I think I would immediately retreat. So I'm thinking, oh, this is really great. This sounds, this is exciting for a second. Or I see your QR code and think, oh, shall I click it? Shall I click it? And then I'd retreat. And this is why. Because some of these thoughts are falling into my kits as a potential recruit. So what if I try and nothing comes of it? Like, is it even worth trying? I don't know. How much is possible to actually earn from this? Could this really work for me? I've never done anything like this before. So in the ability bucket, this is very different to my last job. I wouldn't know where to start. I'm not confident talking to people or selling. So there's just no way I could do something like this. And then that worth bucket. I don't want to take this on and let everyone down. Who am I to think I could run a business? I'm just a mum or whatever. These are the thoughts that those potential new recruits potentially having. Now, if I was going to reach out to you, if there was the opportunity to join your team, I might ask you, well, what's the process? What happens when I sign up? Like, what's expected of me? Can you tell me, like, I haven't owned a business before. Like, what do I need to do? I'd be very, very comfortable with asking you process questions. And it's very easy to share process answers. What we're going to just quickly look at is how do we deal with these things? These are the things they're not saying to you, but potentially the things that would be holding us back. So now I invite you to look back at the bubbles. We're going to return to this. And this time, instead of thinking about ourselves, we're going to choose a of a new recruit. So someone that you would naturally come across if you do lots of baby groups, or if you go to organizations or like the hospital or schools a lot. Who are you most likely to come in contact with? If you're new to Usborne, just choose one. What I'd like you to do is, this time in the big bubble, I would like you to think about, the big bubble is joining Usborne. So that's their big thing. Now I'd like you to think for that particular persona. So let's choose parent, because that's what I've been talking about. Think about the graph. Think about those three buckets and the thoughts they're having. What could be clouding their decision? Because the key is that your follow-ups pop the bubbles. If you can craft your follow-ups to pop any bubbles or even start to pierce them, it will help someone who, and what I'm talking about is someone that wants, deep down, they want to join, they just don't know if it's possible for them. You know, we talked about, can you help them walk through the door? By popping the bubbles, there's a chance they can walk through the door. So just for a couple of minutes, start thinking, what might be getting in their way? I love the conversation with Anne, and that's amazing. Top sales partner in the whole company. There we go. It's taking that first step, isn't it? It's having someone that believes in us. And I know I'm talking over you, probably working, but it goes back to that beginning thing that I talked about. We make decisions based on emotion and trust and connection and feeling. Our follow ups need to be focused on how we build trust, which we'll look at in a minute. How do we help someone to realize the thing that you think is holding you back doesn't need to? You just need to take this first step. And I will be there to help you every step of the way. So have a go just for a minute, thinking about those small bubbles. And again, if you want to put any in the chat, please do. Yeah, thanks, Claire. Too old, not a seller, not enough time. If three, I mean, probably slightly bigger than the small bubbles. Worries about commitments. I don't have time. I discuss the flexibility of Upborn and wonder with them about how much time they think they'd need. That's amazing, Laura. It's what it is, thinking. And sometimes you're making assumptions or presuming, but what are the likely bubbles that are going to be there? And if you've been in Usborne for a while, if not, ask your mentor, you know, what are the common things that hold people back? Because actually reframing that for them, how much time do you think you need? And one of the sentence starters that we'll look at in a minute is about, we'll go at your pace. Worried about talking to strangers. Yeah. Believing in themselves, even when others do. And that's one, for a lot of us. But how do we show them really early doors in those follow ups that we already believe in them? Filling that worth, that's the worth bucket, isn't it? Self belief. Fantastic. I mean, it's a really practical one, Claire, isn't it? I can't buy a gazebo. That might mean I can't do Usborne. Actually, these things, you know, these they all mount up. You've got seven other things that you also think you should be buying or that you should have to start. We all need a reason not to start, take the first step, don't we? And any of these things can get in our way. Yeah, we don't do outdoor events. Yeah. This is brilliant, Michelle. Sharing that, and we'll look at how we can do that in a minute. I borrowed a friend's gazebo for the first year. These are really helpful thoughts that could pop those bubbles. Yeah, practical space for stock. Introvert, I don't know enough people. What do I need to buy? Yep. Fantastic. This is amazing because what you're doing is really getting into their mindset. If we're not careful, like Lucy said, we think so much about our own, nervousness, uncertainty, hesitancy, or maybe that nervous excitement, but oh, what if they ghost me? What if they don't take my follow up very well? What am I writing? Is that going to be the right thing? What we're forgetting is they might just be thinking about the gazebo they haven't got, or they can't drive, or they haven't got time. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that's holding them back. So that's the stuff we need to be talking to. If you don't ask, you never know. Yes. Yes, Vicky, a really common one. My husband doesn't think it's a good idea. And one of the sessions I did at Leadership Academy, we talked about like how do others see you in this role? What do you call yourself? And therefore, if how you're presenting yourself, what would their family think? What external influences are they having? What voices have they got? That noise around them that could stop them from saying yes. Brilliant ideas. Thank you. So much value that's coming from each other. So, as I was just saying, when we're thinking about follow ups, it's looking at shifting from information sharing to making connections. So, as I said, it can be easy to use follow ups to, share information about Usborne or your business. Now, obviously, we all know Usborne's incredible. That's why we're all here. And I'm sure your businesses are incredible. But as we'll come on to in a minute, what they really need to know is about you. You are the person making connection. In the nicest possible way, they're not going to have a connection with Lucy unless they walk through the door, or Michelle, or anyone else in Usborne. So they need a connection with you. So I've just put a few ideas of sentence starters or thoughts. Now these aren't I'm as Lucy said, I don't know, I don't work in direct sales. So I'm sure between you could come up with better or varied answers of what you could use. But it's how to move towards connection rather than sharing information. So the sentence starter, like I remember thinking, what you're not doing is saying, oh, I bet you're lacking confidence, because they might not be. But sharing it from your personal experience. I remember thinking, you know, am I I'm too old or I don't do sales, blah blah blah. That one about, there's no pressure. You get to choose your pace. I get this might feel overwhelming. Or like, here's what helped me when I was starting. It's how to talk to their mindset. So what would be great is after this session, you start to think through how can I phrase things or how am I wording my follow-ups where I'm actually building connection or trying to find out more about them rather than just telling them about processes. So this piece of follow-up is about forming a quick connection. Like someone put in the chat, what if they don't even like reply to me? Oh, yes, Vicky, sorry. Should we go back for a sec? Do you want to, if anyone wants to take a photo, I will send this though. I'll send this to Lucy like last time. So you'll get the slides, but just in case, if you're thinking, do you know what? I'm going to send one of these tomorrow. I'll just put it on that screen if you want to take a quick screenshot. So to form a quick connection, what do they need to get to know you rather than your business? They probably know about Usborne. Some of their friends might do it. Everyone loves an Usborne book. They do need some information about business, but that might need to come. At the moment, those buckets are more about them and how they feel. What they need is a really strong connection with you. So how do you start sharing and in what forms? Is that message? Is that videos? Is it, how do you get so they get this authentic part of you and that you were once in their shoes? You've been there. If someone hadn't recruited you, we said this in the last session, if someone hadn't recruited you, you wouldn't be here today. And thank goodness they did. And then how do you get to know them quickly? I love that. Tell them our Osborne story. That takes us really nicely going into my next slide. So I'm going to hold that thought for a second. How do you get to know them quickly? What can you do in terms of how you phrase things, what you're saying, or what you're asking to get to know them as a person rather than following up to get them through, get them into your team? It's more about making that relationship, opening the door to the relationship. And that lovely thing about tell them that your Osborne story. I've read this incredible book. It's called Belonging. And it's all about how we all need to belong. If we join something and we don't feel we belong, like in our workplace, we go into survival mode. And that's where clicks happen and they take effect. That's where we go into fight or flight. What we need to feel is, I belong here. And your Usborne story is a great way for someone to feel like they already belong before they've walked through the door. Because that's if you can follow up and make someone feel like they're already part of something before they've even said yes, and they feel that they belong to your team already, because that care and understanding that you're persistently following up, because this is about persistence. This isn't about following up once. This is about showing care and understanding over a period of time. But your Osborne story, like where did your Osborne story start? Firstly, where do you want your Osborne story to go? And where are you now? Where are they joining you now? And what are they bringing? This isn't all about, it shouldn't be all about, this is what I can give you. I can give you support. I can give you mentorship. You can join my team. I'm an award winner. That's great, great stuff. I'm not playing that down. But what are they going to bring? What do they do as a job already? What is their skill set? Because I can't wait to have you in my team. If you feel like joining at some point in the future, I think these are the skills that you have, or your personality, or your warmth, whatever it is. I think you would make a perfect member of my team for that reason, because this is what we stand for as a team. And this is what Usborne stands for. So the importance of persistence. This isn't a one-time follow-up. This is about building connections. I'm aware it's 8:58 already. I'm always surprised how fast these hours go. So holding in your mind, it's about the person, not the process. I'd like you just to write in the next minute, if you can think of one. If not, think afterwards and commit to it. Write one thing you will do differently in your next follow-up. Oh, it's a perfect start. Listen more and react to it. Amazing, Colleen. Try and pop their bubbles. I will try and know more about them instead of them knowing about me. That's incredible, Melanie. I love that connection. Ask how their day has been and start a conversation before going into the follow-up. I mean, that is perfect. And that's such an easy follow-up, isn't it? How's your day been? Or like, oh, I'm in the middle of summer holidays, what about you? Use I remember when and refer to taking me 6 months to join and why. Yes, I love that, Vicky. Great, great shout. I love that. We follow up on team members on a regular basis, don't we? We should apply the same method with potential new team members as well. I mean, they're potentially already part of your team, just a future team. Lovely, Vicky. Speak about what they'll bring to my team. These are brilliant, brilliant actions. So that's the end of the session. And if you've got, I mean, I'd love to see more kind of roll in, but I'm just aware of time if people, have got hard finish at 9 because life. Firstly, a huge thank you Thank you for having me back, to Lucy, but also for all of you coming tonight and spending your precious evening with me. And I'm just leaving you with a thought, and I'm not saying this is what you do, but just hold on to this. Don't push people to where you want them to be. Meet them where they are. So when you're following up, I know the essence of following up, the ultimate goal is come and join my team. Meet them where they are. Because if you meet them where they are, you can help them. You'll walk beside them and walk them through that door. Oh, thanks so much for the thank yous. It's always a pleasure. So Lucy, thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
I was muted. Thank you so much, Jenny, for another amazing, thought-provoking session. And it was just really interesting actually to see everyone's thoughts. And I think it was so helpful to see so much in the chat. So thank you to everyone for getting so involved in the chat, being so honest, so open. And hopefully that's given you a feeling of how actually you're all in the same boat. It's just how you handle things and how you perceive things. And I think there's so many takeaways that you can get from there just to see following up in a slightly different light. And whatever it is that you took from this session, it's impossible to take everything from a session. And it's the things that resonated with you most are the things that are going to move your business forwards. And I think, yeah, just keep going with it because, like Jenny said, you don't know what's going on in that person's mind, and what they're telling you is not necessarily the reason they're holding back from joining your team. I also liked what you said about following up is just good customer service. Like it is, isn't it? Someone's shown an interest in something and all you are doing is helping them to see how it could be right for them. You're meeting them where they are, which might be actually that they don't want to reply to every one of your messages, but when the time is right for them on their scale of up and down of life, if you've continued that good customer service, you'll meet them where they are when it's right for them and hopefully help them to have their own business and make some really positive changes to their life. So I'm sure we will see Jenny again because we love Jenny's sessions. Thank you so much for giving up your evening and coming and for choosing to take this positive step in your business. And a massive, massive thank you to Jenny. Jenny puts so much into her sessions, so much research to make it fit exactly what we need. And yes, hopefully we'll see Jenny at another session soon. So if you have any requests on something that Jenny said that actually you feel like if we had another session on this, that would really help me. Drop me an email, or if you don't know my email and your mentor does, get them to send me an email, and we'll see how we can work together to move your businesses forwards. So have a lovely rest of your evening, everyone. Yes, this has been recorded. In fact, I'm going to stop recording now, otherwise